Hello and welcome. Today is Wednesday, the 4th day of October, 2017. My name is Derek. Let's go over some crypto trading. Everything you do is your own risk, own reward. We're looking at charts from TradingView, and I have a front weighted 18 average, and that's practically all that I use within these candlesticks. Of course, the volume can be very indicative of situations as well, which can be important, but this does very well for me. And price action, well, price is what pays. That is the most important thing. And we're seeing on the Bitcoin how it is, like I stated on the 2.5 minute warning, been going sideways, still correcting within this area. So there's really not much more to go over this chart. So I want to talk about the altcoins. Start off with Ethereum, and this one, of course, has been in a downtrend, going sideways. And I've talked just recently about these lows. There's been several in place within this area. It's had a little pop so far, and it could even have some more because within each one, and there was this little move in here, but you've had this high, and then it fell down. And here you had this high and a similar lower high one that obviously didn't get going. So this high, this high, this high. Then you had another one that had a little pop, came in, but this one again lower on such that if it's going to be doing the same sort of pattern, then we'll be looking at a situation where it might come up to whatever area, pull back a little bit, either make a matching or a high that would be lower than here as one of the possibilities. Either way, on the situation when you have a break of significant support, and if this is not significant, well, it obviously is overwhelmingly a significant level, then you usually on the breaks can have significant downside moves. That's of course on the bearish situation after the great rally that brought it up to the 15.5 handle. This one large leg lower that of course has basically been going sideways in this nature, so it's had a long correctionary time, and its move, whether it be a breakout higher or lower, is going to most likely be sparked on larger volume and some crazy moves when it actually gets going. So on a bullish level, there's a lot of highs that it's got to overcome before you can really start to consider, okay, this thing is ready to go, but at least it's got to get above this previous one. But this level here seems to be where a pretty big resistance mark will come in, roughly around that 85 to 90 level amongst the Ethereum. And then any types of significant moves in that area where it's around the 10 handle, you're seeing, okay, I'm looking at bullish breakout behavior in a price action code that has been over the 15 mark, which at that point, when you're talking about the 10, is 50% upside to previous high. And of course, you can always break that out for further gains upon such. So that's key mathematics within it. So any codes I see for those key breakouts of support and resistance, it's all the same. I won't go over them in detail, but let's go over the other key ones, like Dash is next. And on its daily time frame, 11 consecutive down days from this high. This candle to this one. There was 11 of them, ripping through this 18 average and then some. So any type of indicators that are trying to tell you if something is oversold, well, yeah. And I guess I got one, the 18 average, when it's well below this, well oversold. One of the areas I'm going to be looking for resistance within this band, which is currently priced and is declining right now. Well, we'll say a little south of 76 by the time it would eventually get there, and probably this will even head south of 80 as where that would lay, depending on how long, of course, it takes to get to that point. But the overall situation within this market after it had what we could see in here, a lot of sideways congestion movements made through what was the entire summer. We see the support in here was the area of this major resistance, and it had a move, technically higher high, but in my book this is a matching high. Okay, so be it. So what's key is to hold this key level. Well, that didn't happen. And not only did it not hold that, but it's also not holding this. Meanwhile, when we look at the difference of point A, which is this high, and point B, which is all of these lows in here, it's still a little over halfway from this retracement, which does indicate on such, okay, this is a very negative pattern with what overall is barely a positive one on a neutral level. And of course, this is just within this data. Let's take a look at this on a weekly chart. And this is going back to pretty much, I'm guessing within its inception. And obviously before it had a tremendous long trading range. So to make it look a little more clear, I'm just going to eliminate the early few days because I don't really need to see any more of this, but it held its first move higher. That's really what the important thing is to note. And really, let's move on. And what's important to note is this previous high is 28. You're not going to see it on this chart, so let's bring it up now. And therefore, if it's going to come back to where it came from, and well, that's the number, about 28, represents this high, it represents this one, and of course the one just before this point as well. And what's the price number differential for something like that? If, of course, that's to happen, if there's ever any type of large moves to the downside like this, that would be a reduction of over 50%. And in this crypto land, these wild things are possible. I have no idea if something of such is going to happen. The trend within this 18 average is relatively simple in note. Somewhere along here it has this trend line. It tried to break through it before on this period in here. And I like to just do a match like this when and then move it up to resistance. And well, what we're seeing here is that this resistance level was, the rate of ascent has been slowing down. When you look at this at the 18 average, you can see the same thing. The rate of ascent on the 18 is this, and now it's this. So it's not quite, or even like this. So it's not quite of a nice bullish looking level. It's still, however, trading within that range, and the range is barely going up from that point. So I stated on the daily time frame when I mentioned this key level, and it's like I stated with the Ethereum, it's a major level to say the least, that if you probably break down, if you're probably going to break down below this, there's a decent chance that this is going to find a good support level in that either A, it would come down, and this is on a bearish statement, by the way. It would come down, do something like a lower high somewhere in here, and then reach the 28 number that I'm talking about. Or it just may go straight down to 28 and probably within an hour to a day come back to this level in here, and most likely even propel higher afterwards within us. I do like these coins, these altcoins, for a more longer term point of view, and this one is definitely one I'm not selling out of, at least completely, because it's still got this bullish trend. But all of these altcoins that I'm going to be stating could have downside action. I think if they have such, will represent great buying opportunities. And if you look at different strategies, one might be, I want to buy on this 18 average when it's on the 18 average of lows. Okay, buy here, and well, you're pretty much there right now. So you understand which strategies are important to you, and figure out if they work and how well they work. Execute them as such. That's at least what I'm doing myself. Let's move on to the next one, and it would be that of Bitcoin Cash. there's been an okay amount of individual days. I'm not going to show the daily time frame after this because this is all I got. Maybe in the next few months there'll definitely be more data for this code. We can see already within this time frame that it had its first peak move up to this 45 handle, hasn't gotten close since. Came down to this low, hasn't tested it since either. There you got making a high in here from that big 3 candle down move, correcting for several periods, higher low to here, 3 decent candle jump up, which came on extreme volume we have not seen since, which is surprising that that big volume would have came on upticks, given I would have expected the opposite when this was free cash. But anyway, throwing that aside, since then, it has just had much lower volatility, as we can see, grinding its way lower. Small attempt in here, but we'll see this more clearly on the 4-hour time frame. Let's bring this up. Oh, obviously, it's extending well below this 18 average. Now here, this is the 4-hour time frame since the second last great rally, the 1 to 24, anyway. And I don't usually like to look at these charts with a whole bunch of candles, but for this case, quickly, I'm going to. Because since that high, it was in a very steady bear market. And it's been in such now at lows not seen since the early part of this breakout. So within the attempts to assemble a bull market, after the first one in here, a decent amount of time going sideways, establishing a major resistance level along the way, then eventually breaking it to a high we have yet to see since, back to this area as support. But when you look at, okay, I want to buy where it came from, and if you did, well, obviously that was somewhere in here, but as time is rolling on, market's not rallying, it's now falling weak amongst this 18 average, then it's obviously there's bearish sentiments to follow. We can see on the break here, you made a new low. Oftentimes, if it's going to rally, it's going to come back to where it came from. So you would expect to move back to this little area in here, which it did resist there pretty quickly. Tried to have a nice bullish breakout, and this was a nice little break. Oftentimes from failed moves, executes a fast move in the opposite direction, and so was the case again. This was the statement. Yeah, we're going bullish. Yeah, flatten the span out, easily establishing nice resistance. Okay, let's come back to this newly rising average and no further rally from this point. And now at this stage, it has broken through this little area of support. So short term, I'd be looking at 92 as a potential resistance level. And of course, more longer term, you're going to be talking more towards these levels here around the 12 handle. Let's reduce the candles a little bit. And it's getting closer to the point where you wouldn't want to be a seller, but keyword is just getting closer. Every time you break below this decent move, or that was pretty long on this one, and then it goes sideways in here. So it's only had 4 periods in this much of a move. It could definitely possibly have more. Again, I'd be looking for this area as a resistance point as well. Definitely always this 18 average in the situation of this point of, well, always. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. And that will be that of Ripple. As we can see, this thing has been going sideways for quite some time. There was an extreme amount of volume at the bottom area that brought a rally to this level. Not since even been close to tested from that point of view, but as that has not been close to being tested, neither has this low either, so it's maintained itself in this not so tradable range over the last few days. At least for me, it's not tradable. Is it looking like it might want to break through this resistance field? Keyword might. Let's move on to the next one. We'll cover all the top 10, at least that I can see, which is, I think, most of them. Litecoin is next daily time frame. And again, this is becoming untradeable as well with a lot of these lower volatile days within the message of this market. Obvious sideways consolidation from a very large level in the 10 number. and resistance in here at 21. Whenever you have a key level, this is my thinking. I don't care how many times it has tested it. If it's had a good bounce from the last time it has, I'm going to suspect it's going to have another one again. So because of this test in here, having this kind of rally, if this support continues to fall through, it wouldn't surprise me if it came down here. But I'd expect at least, if it's going to bounce or if it's going to, on a bullish or bearish level, it's at least going to go from 10 upward to at least 10+% from that point. And within the sideways market, of course, when these things are ready to go either side of the direction, like I mentioned on the Ethereum, you can expect large volume, large volatility. Let's move on to the next one, which is NEM. And this one is at the area of a big point. Tested here, here, 5,000. It's at that point now. And notice, since obvious downtrend line still has not been taken out, which is getting close to decision day, or a point where it's going to most likely reflect a break one side or another. It's still got a long ways to go on a bullish level, not only to get some decent moves close to this high, but again, it's later on even to break the 9,000. It's in a situation where it's hanging on this support like a thread as far as I'm concerned. Let's move on to the next chart. NEO, which is one I consider to be in that of high risk, high reward. I'm going to reduce the amount of candles within this, but we can see the bull market running very, very well. Let's let's show about 100 to 150 of them. And the biggest reason I'm not in this one and got out was because of its extreme volatility, where a move of extreme downward proportions is definitely in place, but it's actually holding up pretty good right now. We'll see how this move from point A to here is going to play out, because it's now at a key support level within this 18 average, a newly rising one. And if we're looking for reversal of trend, stage 1 is for the band to flatten. Stage 2, establish a level of resistance. This is close enough to coming back to the band. I mean, this is not a clear breakout. It's close, but it also establishes in and around what looks to be about 88, 89 as a pretty big level. So if it's going to lift off from a second time from the 18 average of highs, what we're moving into Thursday or Friday kind of deal, then that's your market going to doing its normal pattern. And this low here would represent the low to this one. Of course, time will tell within that manner. Let's move on to the next chart. And this is IOTA, which is number 9 on the market cap, and Monero is number 10, so that will be the final one for this video. We'll do a top 10 of the cryptos. Not off to a great start, as it started off just hanking into July. A decent size rally, especially if you look at how large of a move that we're looking at. But let's reduce the amount of candles. But the mathematics, 85,000 to about close to 250,000. That's about a 3x. That's pretty decent. Let's change the chart a little bit. And within this one here, it's the same chart, the daily time frame, just so we can see things a little bit more clearly. A little bit of support being found within this level. And from the rally since this point, it's stayed within this correctionary phase for quite some time. Now, after these last two down moves back to the 18 average of lows, it has been going down further, resisting it now. So it looks like this may be ready to start for a down move, maybe back down to this level. And of course, if this doesn't hold, we're looking at this. I don't even think the psychological 10 is that big, actually, but I think 92 down to about the 70 level would be another key level. Let's finish this off within Monero now. And like a lot of the other ones in a downtrend too, but it had a decent sized rally in here, which had a very good gain. It's given, of course, a lot of it back, going from about 38 down to about 20. That's given close to half of its value back and about half of its rally forward. Because if we look at the retracement from this high to this low, it's in and around the 50% mark, and we could still have a 61.8% correction furthermore, and things would be very normal still. But it's in a big downtrend. This level of support at the 24 handle, if this thing is going to get going, is the most obvious spot where I'll be looking for an entry for a level of resistance. And so we're looking just at this like 15, 16 level. I'm just going to have this number in my mind so that when I take a look at the next time frame, pretty much instantly, I'll see what that move would indicate for such. And what we see in here would be a decent move below the 18 average of lows. This wasn't too decent lower, but it's had a lot of them going on, so it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. With that being stated, oftentimes markets will come back to where they came from. And this is a big resistance level, but it didn't get above it by much in here. Therefore, this is indicating to me that, okay, it's changing the statement of the message that we had this nice bullish run in here with about a year or plus correcting this, going sideways. And we're done the correction and we're ready for another leg higher. So that's what it's indicating, the statement as I look at it. What's the story of the market? And that's how I perceive the story. Okay, so you come back to where previous key resistance is. It goes higher. And then later on when I look at these charts, I'll say it came back to where it came from. They usually do within the 18 average, yada, yada, yada. That's typical trading. This is also what the typical failed breakout would also look like too, though. Situation where it has a good move, noticeably breaks above it, but doesn't have too big of a gain. And this rectangle or the square that you draw above it shows a decent amount of periods, but it doesn't sustain for too long. So therefore, this area that's big support mark, if it ends up not holding, that could be pretty severe. However, there's almost like a third point of view, which is let's just continue within the trend. The statement you're telling me, yep, it's not ready. We're not going to do the failed move, fast move, but a fast move would still be enough to go maybe somewhere to the lower end of this range, because what's key support? It technically is a pattern of higher lows. This low, and this low. None of them really match together several times over, sort of like within this resistance. So therefore, to keep a bull market making a pattern of higher lows intact, this 12 having a significant low, a break, a low that's higher than such is important. But quite frankly, 15, 16, 17, all of those areas could very easily be in at that of a nice higher low. The 18 average of highs, it's got to get decently above here before you can start to state, okay, this thing is ready to go for what could be considered for some pretty significant gains, because any rallies that can happen short term that are probably going to fail if it goes lower, I doubt we'll get past too much past this area up in here where the 18 average of highs happens to be. Okay, close to 25 minutes. Wow, didn't think it'd be that long, but thank you for tuning in, and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.